I was designed to be invisible. That was the rule in the glass house. Wear beige. Blend into the drywall. And absolutely never exist when the cameras were rolling. But gravity doesn't care about house rules. During Marcus's golden hour toast, my heel caught the edge of a rug. The tray of crystal champagne flutes didn't just fall, it shattered like a bomb going off in a library. The room went dead silent. Marcus walked over, his Italian loafers crunching on the glass. He didn't look at my bleeding hand. He leaned down and checked the Persian rug for stains. Then he looked at me with eyes like dead fish. "You are ruining the aesthetic." And he said. Then came the slap. Sharp. Corrective. Like he was disciplining a bad dog. "Get out of my sight," he said. Loud enough for the investors to hear. "You're dismissed." Before I tell you who was watching from the shadows that night, double tap the screen if you've ever had someone treat you like an accessory instead of a human being. Drop a yes in the comments if you know exactly what that feels like. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't have a bag to pack. I walked out past the valet stand where the parking attendants were busy stacking Teslas and G-Wagons like Tetris blocks. None of them looked at me. Why would they? I was just the beige blur that had been dismissed. I walked until the gravel turned into asphalt, and the warm glow of the estate faded into the pitch-black silence of a Fairfield County backroad. Rich neighborhoods don't have streetlights. They don't need them, because nobody here walks anywhere. If you're on foot at 10 at night, you're either a deer or a target. The wind cut through my uniform, but I didn't feel cold. I felt light. For the first time in 3 years. I wasn't carrying a tray, a schedule, or Marcus's ego. I was terrified. Sure, but I was also entirely, dangerously free. Then the headlights hit me. They came from behind. High beams cutting through the trees. Blindingly bright. I stepped onto the grass shoulder, expecting the car to fly past. It didn't. Tires screeched against the pavement. A massive black Mercedes Sprinter van swerved in front of me, cutting off the road. The side door flew open before the wheels even stopped rolling. Every survival instinct I had screamed run. 2 men jumped out. They weren't wearing ski masks. They were wearing bespoke suits that cost more than my entire existence. They moved with military precision, flanking me on both sides. I backed up, my heels sinking into the soft mud. I thought about the stories you hear on the newsgirls who vanish from quiet roads, leaving nothing behind but a shoe. "Ms. Whitford?" one of them said. It wasn't a question. It was a confirmation. "Stay back," I said. My voice shook, but I stood my ground. "I don't have anything. I don't have any money." "We know," the man said. He stepped aside. The interior of the van wasn't a cage, it was an office. Leather seats, mood lighting, screens glowing with data. And sitting in the center was a man with silver hair and eyes that looked like they could cut glass. He didn't look like a predator. He looked like a king. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I apologize for the theatrics, Sienna, but the road isn't safe tonight. "Who are you?" I asked. "What do you want?" He looked at me. Not with pity, but with assessment. Like I was a stock he was considering buying before the market opened. "I'm not here to take you against your will," he said, his voice low and steady. "I'm Arthur, and I'm not here to save you. I'm here to hire you." The van didn't take me to a shelter or a police station. It took me to the penthouse suite of the Four Seasons. 20 floors up, looking down on the city lights like they were scattered diamonds. But the room wasn't set up for a reunion. It was set up for war. Arthur didn't offer me a hug. He didn't offer me a tissue. He walked to the marble island in the center of the room, poured 2 glasses of sparkling water and slid a tablet across the surface. "I'm your biological father," he said. His voice had 0 inflection. He said it the way you'd announce a merger or a hostile takeover. "But we can talk about biology later. Right now, we need to talk about economics." I looked at the screen. It wasn't a family tree. It was a forensic accounting report, dense with rows and columns, highlighting a single account, the Sienna Trust. "Your mother left this for you," Arthur said, tapping the glass. "Strictly for educational and medical needs. But look at column B." I zoomed in. Starting 12 years ago, there was a recurring monthly withdrawal of $4,500. The recipient was a shell company registered to Marcus called Fairfield Holistic Management. The memo line on every single transaction read, "Specialized psychiatric care." I stared at the words until they blurred. "I never saw a psychiatrist." I whispered, "I never went to therapy. Not once." "I know," Arthur said. "But Marcus has been billing the trust for your instability since you were 10 years old. That is $54,000 a year. Tax-free. Deposited directly into his personal account." The realization hit me harder than the slap at the party. All those years Marcus told guests I was fragile. All those times Elena sighed and said I was a handful or difficult. They weren't just being cruel. They were building a narrative to justify the invoice. Every time they called me crazy in public, they were validating a withdrawal. I scrolled down. The dates matched perfectly. The kitchen remodel? Paid for by my depression. The new landscaping? Paid for by my anxiety. The glass house itself, the very floor Marcus was terrified I'd stain, was renovated with money meant to heal a mind they were actively trying to break. Something inside me snapped. But it wasn't a break. It was a reset. The sadness evaporated, leaving something cold and hard in its place. I always thought I was a burden they graciously tolerated. I thought I owed them my life, because they kept me when nobody else wanted me. But looking at that ledger, the math changed instantly. I wasn't a burden. I was a high-yield asset. I wasn't a daughter. I was a subscription service they forgot to cancel. I looked up at Arthur. My eyes were dry. "You don't cry over a balance sheet. You audit it." He used my own money to build the house he just kicked me out of, I said. Arthur nodded. A small, grim smile touching the corner of his mouth. "Exactly. And I think it's time we discuss a change in management." My phone buzzed on the marble counter. It was an email notification. Subject line, "Urgent, Gala Prep." Zender, Marcus. I didn't open it immediately. I let it sit there, vibrating like a frantic insect against the stone. When I finally tapped the screen, the audacity almost made me laugh. "Sienna, your outburst was regrettable, but we are willing to overlook it. We need the house staged perfectly for the closing gala tomorrow night. The angel investor is finalizing the acquisition. If this deal closes, the company survives. Consider this your opportunity to earn your way back into the family. Don't be selfish." He wasn't apologizing. He was commanding. He honestly believed my desperation was a renewable resource he could tap whenever he needed cheap labor. He thought I was somewhere in a shelter, shivering, waiting for his permission to exist again. Arthur read over my shoulder. He didn't look angry. He looked amused. "He thinks he's being generous," Arthur said, pouring himself a coffee. "He thinks he's saving the company." "Is he?" I asked. "Technically, yes," Arthur said. The firm was underwater. Bankruptcy was inevitable by Friday. So, an anonymous holding company stepped in this morning and bought the debt for pennies on the dollar. He slid a thick document across the table. It was a purchase agreement. The angel investor isn't me. Sienna, Arthur said, pointing to the signature line at the bottom. I just provided the capital. The holding company is registered to you. I stared at the paper. Sienna Holdings. L.C. He's inviting you to clean the floors for the new owner, Arthur said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous purr. He just doesn't know it's you yet. I looked at the email again. Don't be selfish. He wants a servant, I said, picking up the pen. Let's show him the landlord. The glass house was vibrating. String quartets don't usually sound aggressive. But tonight, every note felt like a declaration of war. Marcus had pulled out all the stops. Champagne flowed like water. Caterers moved in synchronized formations. And the entire Fairfield County elite was packed into the living room I had spent yesterday scrubbing on my hands and knees. I stood at the top of the driveway. The valet reached for my keys. Confused. He didn't recognize me. I wasn't wearing the beige uniform that made me look like part of the furniture. I was wearing a white, tailored suit that Arthur's stylist had overnighted from Milan. It fit like armor. I walked through the front doors. The air conditioning hit me first. Then the noise. Marcus was holding court near the fireplace, laughing too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. He looked like a man who had just dodged a bullet. Completely unaware the gun was still pointed at his head. When he saw me, the laugh died in his throat. His eyes went wide, then narrow. He excused himself from the group and beelined toward me. Cutting through the crowd like a shark in a tuxedo, he grabbed my elbow, his grip bruising even through the fabric. What do you think you're doing? He hissed, his voice low enough to avoid a scene but vibrating with rage. I told you to use the service entrance. And what is this? Costumi? It's not a costume. Marcus, I said, keeping my voice level. It's appropriate attire for a closing. You're manic, he whispered, steering me toward the kitchen door. We talked about this with Dr. Dury. Evans. You're having an episode. Go to the pantry. Take a pill. Don't embarrass me in front of the investors. Dr. Evans. The imaginary psychiatrist. The $54,000 ghost. I didn't pull away. I let him think he was in control. I let him guide me past the hors d'oeuvres. Past the open bar. Right to the edge of the room where the main projector screen was set up for his victory speech. Just stay here, he warned, his finger an inch from my face. Do not move until I tell you. I smiled. I won't. He turned back to the crowd, smoothing his jacket, putting the mask back on. He tapped his glass with a spoon. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, while he beamed at his audience. I looked toward the A.V. booth in the corner. Arthur's head of security was standing there, arms crossed. I gave him a single trainer, barely perceptible nod. Behind Marcus, the giant screen displaying the Fairfield Holistic Management logo flickered once. Then it went black. The screen didn't stay black. It illuminated with blinding clarity, projecting a split-screen image large enough to be seen from the street. On the left, Fairfield Holistic Management. Invoice number 402, Psychiatric Stabilization. $4,500. Date, June 14th. On the right, Aspen Ski Resort. Presidential Suite Charge. $4,500. Date, June 14th. The room didn't just go quiet, the oxygen vanished. 200 people stared at the screen. And then, slowly, like a synchronized wave, turned their heads toward Marcus. The slide changed. Invoice number 403. Emergency crisis intervention. $12,000. Photo. Marcus and Elena, on a private yacht in Saint-Tropez. Caption. Healing at sea. Marcus turned, his face draining of color before flooding with a terrifying, mottled crimson. He laughed a brittle, cracking sound that echoed too loudly. "Technical glitch," he shouted, waving his arms frantically at the projector. "My daughter. She is very unwell. She's hacked the system. It's part of her delusion." He pointed a shaking finger at me. "Sienna, stop this immediately. We will call Dr. Evans." "There is no Dr. Evans. Marcus," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence, it carried like a gavel strike. "Security!" Marcus screamed, sweat beading on his forehead. "Get her out. She is having a psychotic break in front of the investors." "I don't think she is." Arthur stepped out of the shadows near the A.V. booth. Marcus sagged with visible relief. He practically ran toward him, wiping his brow. "Arthur, thank God." "The angel investor. Please. Tell them the deal is finalized and get this girl out of my house, so we can celebrate." Arthur looked at Marcus with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a specimen in a jar. "The deal is finalized. Marcus, the funds were transferred to your creditors this morning. See?" Marcus spun back to the crowd, puffing his chest out, desperate to reinflate his image. "The company is saved. Now, Sienna, leave before I funded the acquisition." Arthur interrupted, his voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. "But I didn't sign the purchase agreement. I am not the owner of this estate. Or your company." Marcus froze. "What?" Arthur pointed at me. "She is?" I stepped forward and took the microphone. Marcus looked at me, and for the first time, he didn't see a servant or a prop. He saw the end of his world. "You're right, Marcus," I said. "I am ruining the party. But you can't kick me out." I held up the deed. "Because as of 9 in the morning, you are trespassing on private property. My property." That was the moment the mask disintegrated. Psychologists call it a narcissistic collapse. When the reality a tyrant has constructed is destroyed, they don't reflect. They detonate. Marcus didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He let out a sound that wasn't human, a guttural roar of pure, wounded ego. "You ungrateful little bitch," he screamed, his veins bulging. "I made you. I own you." He lunged. He cleared 3 feet before Arthur's security team intercepted him. They slammed him onto the marble floor, the same floor I had polished on my knees yesterday. As they cuffed him, he was still screaming about invoices and gratitude, foaming at the mouth. I looked down at him. He looked so small pressed against the stone. "Get him off my rug," I said to the guards. "He's ruining the aesthetic." The flashing lights of the police cruisers bounced off the glass walls of the estate, turning the perfect aesthetic into a chaotic disco of red and blue. As they escorted Marcus out in handcuffs, he didn't look like a titan of industry anymore. He looked like a man whose subscription to reality had just expired. He stopped near the fountain, digging his heels into the gravel. He looked at me, bewildered, as if I had spoken a language he didn't understand. "After everything I gave you," he choked out, his voice hoarse. "A roof. A name. Why would you do this to your own family?" I looked at him. I waited for the anger to come back, the rage I'd felt in the war room, the heat I'd felt when he slapped me. But there was nothing. Just the cool, detached satisfaction of an auditor closing a fraudulent account. I didn't do anything to my family. Marcus, I said, my voice steady. I just liquidated a bad asset. It's just business. I turned my back on him. I didn't watch him get into the squad car. I walked toward Arthur's waiting SUV and didn't look back at the glass house. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the floor of a studio apartment in New Haven. It's small. The faucet leaks. And the view is a brick wall. Not a manicured lawn. But the lease has my name on it. The smell of burning garlic fills the room. Arthur is standing at my tiny stove, wrestling with a loaf of bread. He's a billionaire who can acquire companies before breakfast. But he cannot use a toaster oven to save his life. It's a little crispy, he says, bringing a plate over. It's charcoal. Dad, I say, taking a bite anyway. It tastes perfect. I open my laptop. For years, this screen was a source of terror. Marcus's emails, Elena's demands, the endless scheduling of a life that wasn't mine. Now, the browser is open to the Rhode Island School of Design application portal, program of interest, architecture. They spent 12 years paying a fake doctor to say I was unstable. They said I needed to be managed. They said I was broken. I look at the application. Then, at the burnt bread. Then, at the father, who showed up when it mattered. I'm not broken. I'm just under new management. If you believe that family is defined by how they treat you, not just by blood. Share this story. And if you want to see a cheating husband get served divorce papers at his own promotion party, click the video on the screen now.